this week's edition of the Heart of Mule underneath the Taylor Industries tent. I am joined here with sophomore cross-country and indoor and outdoor track runner Kenny Froby. Kenny, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, and we'll just go ahead and get started here with the faith side of stuff. And how did you come to your relationship with Christ?
For me, growing up, my mom took my three sisters and I to church every Sunday, so that's really where I kind of got introduced to the whole God thing. I kind of learned about Christ through that, and so when I was old enough to kind of understand how salvation works, I was around the age of 7 when I prayed to receive Christ into my life. So that's really where it all started for me.
And not only as a spiritual person as you are, but also being the athlete you are with running, how were you able to balance not only the physical training, but also your spiritual training as well?
For me, my spiritual training is really something that kind of happens 24/7, and so really every other aspect of my life kind of falls under that. I feel that physical training and spiritual training kind of go hand in hand, just in the sense that some lessons that I learned through my physical training I can then go ahead and apply to other aspects of my life, like my spiritual training, and then vice versa. So.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned a little bit with the kind of the lessons that Christ is able to teach you. How are the lessons that you've learned through Christ, how are you able to kind of apply those to not only yourself but your teammates?
I feel like one of the best ways to just kind of do that is just show love to my teammates, and I kind of just try to show love to them in whatever ways is possible. One of the biggest things I've learned is just the value of humility, because in the sports world, so often we see people who just promote themselves and are so just selfish and caught up in their own achievements and just talk others down to make themselves look better. And so when somebody sees someone who's not like that, who's encouraging others, who's putting others' needs before themselves, that really stands out and kind of gives me an opportunity to share with them why I'm that way, and just share with them Christ's love and what He's done for me.
How do you assume that your spiritual practices help you with your running?
Like I said, it's made me a lot more humble, and I feel like it's just made me a lot more of a team player. I'm not really focused on my own personal achievements. I'm more focused on just how I can use my own abilities to help contribute to the overall effectiveness of our team.
Now, you're an actuarial sciences major here at UCM, and you've been on the academic honor roll as well. How does your faith help you with your academic side as well as with your with running?
So obviously with my faith, I want to be a good witness in everything I do, and that includes my academics. So it would just kind of look bad if I gave it my everything in my sports and just slacked off in the academics part. So I do everything that I do to the very best of my ability to kind of represent Christ well in everything that I do.
Since being in college now, again, you're just a sophomore, so you still have a lot more time here, but can you give me an example of a time when your faith was really tested? For me, I think my faith is really tested the most just in the seasons of life where I get busy and stressful with school or sports or whatever's going on. It's just in those times when I'm kind of tempted to just throw God aside and just turn to myself and look to my own strengths to accomplish everything that I need to do, which obviously is not the best way. And obviously you're a pretty important member here with the FCA program here at UCM. Just talk about how you got involved with FCA here at UCM.
It was my freshman year, and one of the seniors or juniors at the time on the team, Michael Golick, actually invited me to come to FCA with him one week, and so I started coming, and I really enjoyed it. So I just kept coming every week, and just ever since then I've been just getting more involved in that.
And kind of just piggybacking off Golick a little bit, would you kind of say that he's a person that you sort of look up to as far as not only with the spiritual side of things, but also, he's a teammate of yours as well, so he's there with you all the time?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's a very good role model. I try to, he's a really good figure on the running team, and so he's someone I try to be like. I model my training after him sometimes, and just kind of look up to him in that way.
What would you say is the greatest strength that you find from your spiritual practices? Just the fact that I know that I'm never alone. We see countless times in the Bible God promises Christians that He'll never leave them, they'll never be alone. And so I feel like that fact has just really made me a lot more confident in whatever I do, just knowing that He's always going to walk through it with me.
And you kind of mentioned, obviously, with Golic a little bit earlier, but kind of who is someone else that kind of really has helped you with your spiritual growth as far as a person?
In high school, my cross-country coach was a really solid Christian, and he actually led me and some of the other guys on the team in a Bible study each week. And so he was definitely one of my biggest spiritual mentors that I've had. I really look up to him in that aspect.
And so finally here, Kenny, told you about to make sure to have your favorite verse picked out, so
yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and tell us what it is, and then go ahead and read it for us.
All right, it's Isaiah 40:31, and it says, "But those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint."
And you kind of, you run and will not get weary. Is that kind of a little bit of a coincidence, just being a cross-country and track runner that you are?
Yeah, I think so. I just really like this verse, just because obviously it has the word run in it, but it just reminds me that my strength comes from the Lord and not from anything that I do.
Absolutely. And when we return, we'll come back with more of Kenny Froby, the athletic side of things. You're watching the Heart of the Mule underneath the Taylor Industries tent. We'll be right back after this.
I choose excitement.
I choose to make a difference.
I choose uncommon opportunities.
I choose Red to experience learning to a greater degree.
Choose Red. Choose the University of Central Missouri.
Welcome to Taylor Tidbits here, presented by Taylor Industries. I'm sitting alongside here with founder and CEO of Taylor Industries, Mike Ballard. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Absolutely. And go ahead and just tell us a little bit about what Taylor Industries is and what kind of services and products you provide.
Taylor Industries is a manufacturer of medical products. Our main thing that we do here in this facility is ECG electrodes, which are used to monitor your heartbeat. If you're ever in a hospital, or say they do a stress test on you on a treadmill, they're going to have them on you to monitor your heart. We also manufacture TENS electrodes for nerve stimulating, and we custom build machinery to do different things.
And talking about your customers that you have, obviously you've done a lot of business here in the United States, but you've also done a lot overseas as well?
Yeah, when we started Taylor Industries, 90% of our business was international. Now back then, we didn't build machines for people. We only built them for ourselves, in-house use only. And so back then we were manufacturing the electrodes and selling them internationally. Today it's nowhere near that.
And kind of just talk about a little bit, the growth of Taylor Industries from the start. You said originally that it started in Wisconsin. We're sitting here in Jeff City today. Kind of talk about just the process of how Taylor Industries has come about over the years.
It came about because of a competitor. I worked for a company called Classic Medical Products. It was bought and was promised that nothing would happen, and I knew that wasn't the case. So I left. 3 months later, they moved the entire company out of the state. So my wife and I decided, we needed to do something. So we cashed in my 401k, used all that money to start this company, which was not a lot, let me tell you. There was hardly any money in that. This company was started in a way that I don't know a company could start today. It started with absolutely, really no capital investment. It was a God thing. My wife and I have been asked about this company when we did the open house here in Jeff City, and they asked me to talk about the company and stuff, and I made sure everybody understood, legally on paper, this company belongs to my wife and I. but we know, her and I and the family knows, that this company belongs to God. And it would not be here today had it not been for him and the way it got started and the way it came about. So my competitor, who put the company I work for out of business, I have them to thank for me being in business and owning my own company.
You just mentioned a little bit about, with incorporating with Christ and with your work. Talk about, the principles that you learned through Christ. Talk about how you apply those to Taylor.
Well, growing up, I was raised in a pastor's house. My dad is a pastor. But more than that, my grandfathers, who weren't pastors. One of my grandfathers taught at the University of Alabama. My other grandfather owned 2 companies, one with his wife, Cradle Roll Nursery, which took care of small children, and he owned a used car lot. Now most people will say, used carman, but if my grandfather shook your hand and gave you his word, you didn't need his signature, and that's what I watched growing up. If my grandfather said it or if my dad said it, you could take it to the bank. And I was raised around that in Alabama and was taught that way. So incorporating into the faith and stuff into my business, that's not difficult to do. I want to make a high quality product, and that stems from I want to please God in what I do. It doesn't matter what you do in life, it matters how you do it. And I'm his. I'm whatever I can do, to please him is what I want to do. So incorporating my faith in my business is not a difficult thing to do.
This is Mike Bauer, the founder and CEO of Taylor Industries. This has been Tailored Tidbits.
Live with a human for a while and you get to know a few things. Like, I know she's actually not a morning person. I know she does strange tricks for no treats. I know that water makes her howl like crazy. I even know how the floor stays so clean. She's quick. But the one thing I will never for the life of me know is how she gets so tiny and inside that box. Natalie, how do you get so tiny?
Hi, I'm Jason Ketz, and thanks for watching this week's edition of The Heart of the Mule presented by Taylor Industries. If you or someone you know would like to be on the show, email us at theheartofthemule@gmail.com.
Welcome back to this week's edition of The Heart of the Mule underneath the Taylor Industries tent. And joined here with Kenny Froby, sophomore Mules cross-country and track runner. And Kenny, originally you're from Lenexa, Kansas, so you're from the Kansas City area, as am I as well. Just talk about growing up and kind of some of the sports that you kind of played in your younger years.
Yeah, growing up I played a lot of different sports, just kind of to get a feel for what I was good at and what I liked. The first sport I played was soccer. Probably started in kindergarten or first grade and played that for probably 5 or 6 years all throughout elementary school. Just really enjoyed that. Just played on a recreational team, so nothing too competitive. And then in middle school I joined a basketball team and played that for a few years, and then in high school switched over to running, and so those are the main sports that I played.
And absolutely, and kind of, with not only soccer but also basketball, there really is that running aspect to it. So was it, was that just something that you always loved to do? Was running just kind of one of those things you always like to do?
Yeah, definitely. I remember growing up in PE class, I would always love getting in trouble and having to go run laps. I was one of the only kids that enjoyed that, so early on I knew that was something I kind of enjoyed to do, so it's always been something I've liked.
And kind of piggybacking off that a little bit with the running aspect, how did you said in high school was when you really kind of started focusing specifically on running. Was that just a choice that you made yourself, or were some of the other factors played into that?
That was mainly my decision.
at that point I kind of realized that, you know, running was my best sport. You know, I wasn't too good at basketball. You know, my hand-eye coordination is not the best. So so I just decided to focus mainly on running, just to see how much I could improve in that aspect.
Now, and you know, you kind of came to UCM with a little bit of a different story than most here. You're originally homeschooled. Just kind of talk about, you know, the kind of, you know, how that helped you with being homeschooled as opposed to going to, you know, a public school.
Yeah, definitely. On the academic side, I really think being homeschooled was a good thing for me, just because I could kind of learn at my own pace and just choose to focus on the things that I struggled with, whereas in public school, kids don't always have that option. And so I also really think it just gave me a stronger relationship with my family, which I really value that a lot.
And did you think that, you know, being homeschooled, not only it helped your relationship with your family, but do you think it also helped you with your development as a runner?
A little bit. Yeah, I could. You know, growing up, I didn't run competitively until I was in junior high, and by that time I found a local school, a private Christian school that allowed homeschoolers to compete with them. So for me, it was just kind of joining them with what they were doing. And that was just a really good opportunity for me to kind of focus on my skills in that.
You kind of mentioned a little bit with your homeschool team that you ran with. You were a member of the 4-time cross-country national championship team there. Just kind of talk about, you know, the development through the 4 years of your high school term that, you know, you were able to grow as a runner, not only yourself but your team. Right.
Coming in my freshman year of high school, there were a couple very good runners that were seniors that year, and so that was a really good opportunity for me to kind of learn from them and just kind of model myself after them. I know I kind of chased them down the whole year. I never actually beat any of them, but just a really good learning opportunity for me. And then just the years that followed, just seeing what I did in my training that worked, and just learning from that, and then seeing things that I did that kind of hurt me, and so I stopped doing those.
And obviously your training really paid off for you. You were the 2013 NCHC cross-country individual national champion. Just kind of talk about, you know, that final race there in high school and kind of the culmination of all of the training that you had done in those 4 years.
Yeah, it was really rewarding, that race. I had been working towards that the entire season. You know, that was the last race. And so it was really just the culmination of everything that I had been working for the past 4 years. So it was really kind of nice to see my hard work pay off in that aspect. It was just a good moment.
Absolutely. And then talk about a little bit the transition from, you know, not only from high school but getting looked at by, you know, different colleges to try to come run. What made you decide to come to UCM?
There were several factors that played into that. Probably number one was the major that I wanted, because I'm an actuarial science major, and not a lot of Division II schools have that major as an option. And so that was definitely one of the things that attracted me here, and also just the distance to home. I knew I didn't want to go somewhere that was, you know, several hours away, so this was kind of the perfect in-between place for me. And I met Coach Kirk Peterson. He really rubbed off well on me. Really got to like him when I was meeting with him. So those 3 things definitely brought me here.
Talk about, you mentioned a little bit with Coach Peterson. Talk about your first meeting with him and kind of your first impressions.
Yeah, I first met with him probably March or April of my senior year. I was on a school visit, and I had, you know, contacted him and said if he would like to meet with me, and he said sure. And so we just kind of met and talked about what the team does for training, and just kind of what the school had to offer. And I was very impressed with all the facilities that we have here, and just his training philosophy, and just the accomplishments of the cross-country team in the past. And so that was definitely a plus for me.
And obviously this past season, Coach Peterson was unable to be with the team as he was recovering from medical issues. You know, how was the team morale just kind of after knowing that, you know, Coach wasn't going to be around for the season? Was it a little bit different? Was it the same?
Yeah, it was definitely different. I feel like it brought us a lot closer together as a team. You know, obviously when you have something like that happen to your coach, it's a little demoralizing. It's kind of hard to deal with at first, but we had a great assistant coach, Ben Barrows, kind of step in and take that leadership role, and so really kind of brought us closer together and just made us focus just all the more on the season and what we were going to do.
And then obviously let's go back to your freshman year here. That was, again, 2014, 2015. Cross country wise, you ran 4 races. You had your personal best, 27:30.84 at the Southwest Baptist Invitational. You take 25th. Just talk about running in your first collegiate race and kind of, you know, the main differences between high school and college.
The main difference for me, the first thing that comes to mind is just the distance of the race. You know, in high school we raced 5Ks, and in college we raced 8Ks, and so my first 8K that I ran was pretty difficult. I wasn't really used to running that far, so there's kind of an adjustment period there that happens with that. And just the level of competition was obviously a lot higher in college than it was in high school, so that kind of plays into that. It's a little more intense, the competition in the races.
And then obviously the past, also in that year, you competed at the Mule run as well, 21:59.27. With the renovations that have now gone on at now Mule National, is the course going to be a lot different now than in the past?
Yeah, I think so. The course, we haven't been able to go out there and see it quite yet, but I feel like the main parts of the course will remain the same. There might be a few minor changes, but for the overall part, it should be the same, I think.
And then you were also a member of the MIAA Academic Honor Roll as a freshman, and, you know, just kind of talking again about, you know, being able to balance not only the running side of things, but also the studies as well.
Yeah, it just comes in with the time management part of things. I feel like I really learned that in high school. It kind of prepared me for college. You know, in high school I was working a part-time job, 30 hours a week, and then with sports and school and all that. So I feel like that really prepared me for college and, you know, everything that I needed to do here.
And then you kind of started with the indoor season as well. You know, again, you competed in the mile and the 3,000 meter. You had a season best in the mile of 4:34.84, and then you did a 9:10.16 in the 3,000 meter. You know, we kind of mentioned a little bit off camera about how it was kind of more your first time running on the indoor track. So kind of talk about that transition from going from outdoor track to indoor.
Yeah, it's definitely a big transition. The track is obviously half the size, and so that plays a big role with the sharper turns and more laps and things like that. So the race feels a lot longer even though it's the same distance. And then just being in an indoor facility, the air quality is a lot different. Just getting used to training in there was a big thing for me, just kind of getting a feel for the indoor track and just how that works.
And then we move on to the outdoor season where you took 17th at the MIAA Championships, and you also competed in the 1,500 meter with a 4.0795. Just talk about being able to compete at a big you know, event like the MIAA Championships as a freshman.
Yeah, I felt very honored to do that. You know, in indoor track, I had not quite made the cut for the conference team, so I was just really happy to be able to run in conference for outdoor track. It was just a really special experience for me to be able to go and run at a meet like that.
Absolutely, and now, you know, you're still kind of you're still just a sophomore here, and so you've kind of been able to, you know, look up to some of the older guys on the team. And I know we've mentioned Michael Golick earlier in the show, but is there somebody else that kind of comes to mind as far as someone you try to model your running style after?
Yeah, definitely. We had one of our seniors last year. His name's Adam Treadway. He was a really good miler here for us, and so obviously the mile is probably my favorite event, and so I did a lot of training with him in indoor and outdoor track, and so he was definitely someone that I kind of looked up to and tried to go after in workouts. You know, we worked out together and everything, so he's definitely, I tried to model my whole training philosophy after him.
And we're, you know, kind of toward the end of the cross-country season, getting into the indoor and outdoor track season approaching pretty quickly. talk about some of the goals and you know, some of the things you want to accomplish this season.
I would love to, again, run at the conference meets again this year, and hopefully this time one of my main goals is to be able to score at conference, which would mean being in the top 8. And so that's going to be a big step up from last year, but I feel like with the extra training and just extra motivation, I think that I can do that with the help of coach and my teammates. So that's my main goal. And I have some time goals as well. You know, I want to hopefully break 4:20 in the mile, and then break 4 minutes in the 1500, but those are kind of secondary.
Is there a goal that you kind of want to accomplish by the time you're a senior? And I know it's a little bit down the road, but obviously as a competitive athlete as you are, you know, you've got those long-term set goals. So is there one that you kind of have come to mind for a long-term goal?
Yeah, definitely. Probably the biggest goal I have long-term is just to qualify for nationals. I know that's an experience not a lot of runners get to have, and so I feel like that's really something I'm going to work towards all throughout my collegiate experience here.
Absolutely. He is Kenny Froby. I am Jason Ketz. This has been this week's edition of the Heart of the Mule underneath the Taylor Industries tent. We'll be back next week.
Hi, I'm Jason Ketz, and thanks for watching this week's edition of the Heart of the Mule presented by Taylor Industries. If you or someone you know would like to be on the show, email us at theheartofthemule@gmail.com.